we've got our hands on this old German blowtorch. Or I would even call it a pocket flamethrower, since it's really quite space-saving. It took us a few days of work to restore this indeed amazing device, so let's see how it went. Using a stiff brush, we removed the dirt from the surface before the next step. The refillable reservoir is in poor condition. The paint is cracked, so we'll have to remove it. First, we need to unscrew it from the front of the burner, but there is no way to do it by hand. So we clamp the front part in a vise and unscrew it that way. Inside, we found some strange things. It turned out to be a bunch of cotton cords. I'm not quite sure what they are for. Perhaps they are needed so that the gasoline is filtered through them and held exactly in the front part near the outlet. Because of the high temperature, the knot is a little blackened at the front, but overall it's in a pretty good condition. Next, unscrew the knob in the back of the reservoir and remove the pump rod and the piston, which pressurizes the reservoir and pushes the fuel out. The piston is made of leather and coated with special grease that allows the leather to remain elastic and slide easily inside the pump. This is the lid of the reservoir, through which we will fill it with gasoline. The rubber gasket is also in its place. Let's unscrew the body of our pump with a monkey wrench. Here's how small it is, but very effective. Then we move on to the front and remove the stand of our flamethrower. Since most of the parts are made of non-ferrous materials, there is not much rust, but there are lots of black deposits and some kind of oil. We take off this container where the primary ignition of the flamethrower is done. Unscrew the knob and then the whole fuel flow control mechanism. Well, the disassembly is finished. Now we've got to figure out how to clean all the persistent soot which has accumulated on the surface for many years. With a magnet we can easily identify where the soft non-ferrous material is and where the hard metal is. If we clean soft brass mechanically, no doubt we will have a lot of scratches and damage on it. This is a highly unfit way for us. So we bought a fireplace cleaner at the store and decided to test it on a piece of a flamethrower. We've coated the detail with the cleaner. After a couple of hours, we tried to clean it with the stick, and it worked. If we were able to somehow remove the soot after a couple of hours, the process would be much easier after a whole night in the liquid. Next, we take a high cup, put all the large parts in it, and then fill it to the top with the same liquid. Let's leave it alone for an entire night, hoping that in the morning there will be no more soot. Meanwhile, we move on to the iron reservoir of the flamethrower. The paint is gone in a lot of places, but where it is, it's sticking quite firmly. This time we decided to try a chemical coating removal, so we bought this paint remover. This is some kind of a gel that we use a brush to apply to the paint. And you won't believe it, in half an hour something starts to happen to the paint and it starts to come off the metal, forming these bumps on the surface. It seems it's done, and now we can remove the paint even with a regular stick. It looks like a post-sunburn skin peel. Here's what we end up with. We were surprised to find that even under the paint there were rust pockets, which made their way along these winding paths. We will remove the rust with sandpaper. This way, we remove the rust and make the surface matte so the new paint stays better. After an hour of polishing, we get this result. And after cleaning the surface with solvent, this part is ready for painting. We've managed to find almost identical paint at the DIY store. we take a small brush and confidently apply it to the surface. The unique feature of this paint is that a minute after applying it, it creates a uniform texture with these characteristic bumps and depressions. Hang the reservoir upright and leave it to dry. By the way, when we decided to wash the brush, the paint was creating these fascinating patterns. It's a kind of magic. And the particles of pigment began to move along the brush fibers. Now we move on to the parts soaked in the cleaner, but the soot didn't seem to disappear anywhere. Didn't it work? But everything changed once we took the stick. The soot began to come off in pieces. I can't believe it's so easy. To save time, we took some soapy water and my toothbrush, and things went even faster. Then we did the same with the tiny details. After cleaning, we poured the liquid back to the bottle, and I'm sure it will come in handy one day. The iron part is almost unchanged. We still have to work with it. There are lots of small scratches on the sides of the nozzle. We decided to sand them with the abrasive block. We ended up with a nice matte texture, as if it just had been cast in the factory. We had lots of trouble with the iron part, but we managed to clean it. Then we covered it with special coating for covering real weapons. After applying it to the surface, it starts to darken and gets an iridescent coloring that will protect the metal from corrosion. Using an abrasive sponge, we remove the soot residue on the small parts and polish the container. We align the backside of the fuel regulator. Also, we find that our reservoir has already dried up. The good thing is that the inscriptions are intact and clearly visible. All the parts are ready, so we can now start assembling. We hope that eventually our flamethrower will work. First of all, we screw in the nozzle, insert the filter and screw on the reservoir. We insert the pump housing and tighten it firmly so there was no fuel leakage and it didn't catch fire. We fasten the fuel container together with the nozzle cover and slide out the stand. That's it! Finally, our blowtorch is operational. Just look at this beauty, as if it just came out of the assembly line. Of course, a lot of work was done behind the scenes, but Stefan says it was worth it and we need to test it out. So we open the lid and pour some reformulated gasoline into the reservoir. I guess we could have poured conventional gasoline, but I only had this. We didn't want to set our house on fire, so we went outside. With the piston, we inflate the pressure inside the reservoir. Now pour some alcohol into the container and ignite it. This way, the flame heats up the burner nozzle and the gasoline coming out should evaporate faster. Ignite and bring the blowtorch into working mode. Let's open the fuel supply a little and try to ignite it. Oh wow, it works! Look at this bright blue flame. The temperature there must be extremely high, and it works in any position, no matter how we turn it. We brought a thick wire to the blowtorch and it almost reached white heat. This brass tube began to melt because of the flame in just a couple of seconds. It is very powerful. I think it's much more powerful than an ordinary blowtorch. It's really great that we've managed to restore it. I'm sure it will come in handy more than once.